the show. Well, last Tuesday marked the end of the 3-day grace period for mail-in ballots in Kansas. So no more having to wait, extra 3 days just to find out who won an election. With us now to explain how important that was is Representative Pat Proctor. He chairs the House Elections Committee. Pat, thank you for joining us. Nice work, by the way, getting that finally passed.
Yeah, only took 3 years. That was easy.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that heavy a lift, but that's what happens when you have a Democrat governor vetoing everything.
Yep. And I'll tell you, after 2 years, I was just about ready to give up. But then I go around and I talk to a lot of clerks because I'm chair of the Elections Committee and we're passing laws. We need to know how it impacts them. And I started hearing from clerks that, that we have this 3-day grace period, but a lot of the ballots, they can't even count because they come in without a postmark.
Right.
And, that's just that's unconscionable that a voter did everything right, the clerk did everything right, and we're still not going to count the ballot because the post office didn't put a little stamp on it. So I gave it one more shot, and this year we were finally able to get it across the line.
Well, and I know the left, they say it's disenfranchising, they say voter suppression by getting rid of this, but the bottom line is we had it went through it, and lo and behold, I think now that we're moving forward, we're not going to see that. We're not going to see all of, quote unquote, voter suppression. And the bottom line is anytime you have ballots lingering, there's just a greater possibility of fraud. And that's really what we're trying to prevent here, correct?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, everything that I work on in the Elections Committee is about restoring voter confidence and bringing people back to the process. And, when somebody wins on election night, then 2 days later they're not winning, that erodes voter confidence. And
yeah.
So this idea of taking ballots after the election is a bad idea anyways. But then there's the fact that, like I said, we finally got the Secretary of State's office to actually pull the data. And during the 2024 primary, they received 3,000 ballots during that 3-day grace period. 1,000 of them they couldn't count because they came in without a postmark. So, that's like 1 out of 3 ballots during this period. That's just I hear all the Democrats say, "Oh, that's disenfranchisement."
Whatever.
Kansas voters are smart.
Yeah.
If we tell them what the rules are, they'll follow the rules. Before we had a 3-day grace period, about 2,000 ballots would come in after the election. Now we have a 3-day grace period, about 2,000 ballots come in after the 3-day grace period. There's a certain number of people who are going to procrastinate, and if you tell them they got to get it in 3 days earlier, they'll get it in.
They'll get it in.
Earlier.
Well, look, 7 p.m. the polls close. It's simple enough. And yeah. I think it's no different than getting your books in on time if you're at a library, or your mortgage paid on time, or anything else. If it's important, you'll do it. And if it's not, well, then, I'm sorry, folks, they're rules, and rules are there for a reason. And it's just that simple is the way I see it.
And John, this isn't a novel solution. 32 other states were already setting the deadline at election night. And so we make it a clean 2/3 of the country now that election night's election night. We stop taking ballots, and that's the end of the election.
We're talking with Representative Pat Proctor, who chairs the House Election Committee. Pat, I don't know if you heard the monologue, but I want to ask you, you're up in the north part of the state. You're up in the Johnson County area. You had 24% turnout. We had 11% down here. And it's the local elections. It's not so bad. It's still not great, but it's not so bad in the even years. But what do we do as Republicans, or even Democrats? I don't care. I'd rather they vote on Wednesday. Joke. Don't want anybody, but what do we do to get better voter turnout for these local elections?
The thing is, Democrats, they're all living in their mom's basement. They got nothing to do. They live politics. Government's their God. We have lives, and it is very hard. I knock doors every year for municipal candidates. It is very hard to get Republicans out on odd years. What I want to do, I'm going to give it a shot this year. If I don't, it's going to be on my legislative agenda as Secretary of State. I want to make all of the elections even year elections.
Oh,
yes. Make them all partisan.
Thank you. I was going to say, can we make them partisan too? Because nobody buys this nonpartisan malarkey anyway. So let's just get rid of it.
Exactly. And, I mean, all the Democrats are upset. Like, oh, my gosh, these are nonpartisan elections. As soon as they won all these elections this year, the Kansas Democrats were celebrating that all their candidates won. So I guess they're only nonpartisan until after Election Day.
And I don't know if you've seen it, but Cindy Holscher's been going around posting endorsements by a bunch of school board members. But and every time she does it, I keep reposting it on Twitter and saying, oh, wait a minute, I thought these school board races were supposed to be nonpartisan.
Yeah. And, you were a legislator too, John. Folks, we knock doors in the even years and everybody's talking to us about property taxes. Well, you know what? The state of Kansas is out of the property tax business.
Right.
All of your property taxes are determined by your local governments. And if we don't get folks involved in those local elections, then we're not going to be holding those local officials accountable, and
Exactly.
the budgets are going to just keep skyrocketing. So, I think that we need to move all the elections to the even year. I've talked to a lot of clerks about it. They love it because it's half as many elections.
Yeah.
And it'll also lower property taxes because you only have to pay for half as many elections. So I think all around that's the best way to solve the problem.
You mentioned it. You're running for Secretary of State. I know you've been out. I've seen you're all over. In fact, I think you're coming to the bourbon and cigar thing on Thursday, but how is that going? How's the campaign going?
Yeah, you know what? I am getting a great reception everywhere I go. I'm having a great time meeting folks, what I'm finding everywhere I go is people are just hungry to have a conversation. For 5 years, we haven't been having a conversation about elections. We've been having a shouting match and calling each other names. And people just want to have their concerns heard. And, I might not agree with them or I might agree with them. But, we need to just listen to each other, not shout each other down. And if somebody does have a concern, we got to have the courage to address their concern. If we can fix it without it costing $1 gajillion and it doesn't make it harder to vote, let's just address their concern so we can bring them back into the process.
Well, Pat, if they want to reach out to you, if they've got questions, they can find you at Pat Proctor 4KS, and that's the number 4, correct?
Yes, sir.
Brother, I appreciate you, and I guess I'll see you Thursday, and we can share a cigar together. Well, not share, but you know what I meant. that might be a little creepy,
that's
but
deal. That's a deal.
I'll see you Thursday.
John, it is too early for Christmas music. I'm sorry.
No, that's not true, because I have seen Hans Gruber fall from the Nakatomi Plaza, and that is the beginning of Christmas, is when Bruce Willis throws Hans Gruber off the Nakatomi. So, Pat,
just like the ball drop bringing in the new year.
That's right. That's right. Brother, I will see you Thursday, my friend.